for our last session for the day on hedge funds, Edric Jansen. Edric, thank you so much for being here. Jy het gesê jy gaan die helfte van die aanbieding in Afrikaans doen.
Inderdaad, ja.
Dis fantasties. Ons sien baie uit daarna. Okay, we're going to look at hedge funds and how it can diversify client portfolios. We've had a couple of hedge fund webinars so far. I think we had about 5 or 6. Edric also been on one of his webinars. I think it is becoming a lot more popular, hedge funds in client portfolios, to understand how it can potentially mitigate risk as well and add to value for clients over time. But I'm not going to spoil the fun. Edric, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Eugene. I feel like I need a major introduction because probably no one in this room, apart from a handful of people, has ever seen my face. So just a brief background before I tell you who Protea is. I actually played professional golf before I went to university. And just a fun fact before I get there, this is the first time I'm mic'd up standing on stage in front of a group of people since my high school musical. So after that, I went to play some golf, chased a little white ball down the fairway, finally saw the light, and the ripe old age of 30 years old, I went to the University of Pretoria, just around the corner, and I studied investment management. And I graduated with a master's degree in behavioral finance and obtained a postgraduate diploma in financial planning, as I'm sure most of you have as well. So, and then a little bit about Protea. We actually cut our teeth at 361. That's where Jean-Pierre, my colleague, he was at 361 for 6 years. And in 2016, he wanted to start his own thing. And we launched 3 funds. It's obviously difficult to start a business. And we went into a joint venture with Fairtree, and we launched the 3 funds in 2016. And they helped us go through the J-curve. And in 2019, the 14th of June, we became a standalone business. And Protea Capital Management was born. So I don't know how many people have heard of us, but hopefully you can remember the name after today. And I was listening to Zanele, which was a fantastic presentation. I really enjoyed the presentation. And she referred to 361 having 16 billion as a nimble. I think that will make us contortionists. Because we are very far from that. We manage just over R1 billion at the moment. And the adoption of hedge funds obviously have been very slow, even though it's been classified as unit trust for a decade now. I think the last 2-3 years, hedge funds have become more prominent in client portfolios. We've experienced it. We see it as well. It's not even, it's on all major platforms. It's available. It's daily price. So it's really accessible. Now it's just a question of, should I use it or not? And I think a lot of people here hopefully are using hedge funds. And after the next few minutes, hopefully those who do not can see the value add. So my presentation today, even though I'm talking about sequence risk, or that is the title, I think that is the overarching idea of today is to make you see why you should include it. And sequence risk is definitely one of those. If your client retires tomorrow and the market falls by 30%, he's in deep trouble. And that is where hedge funds can play a vital role. So I'm going to talk about what a hedge fund is, because I don't want to assume everyone knows what a hedge fund is, and there are many different hedge funds. The role of them in the portfolio, the drawdowns and sequence risk, and market outlook and insights. So the first point I want to try and make is hedge funds are not homogeneous. That is just a fancy word for all the Afrikaans people. They're not all the same. There are many different kinds of hedge funds, just like there are traditional unit trusts. There are equity hedge funds. That's where we operate. That's the vanilla flavor of hedge funds, equity, long, short. But you also get fixed income hedge fund, multi-strategy, market neutral, etc. But then there's another subdivision. You get hedge funds that behave in different ways. You get hedge funds that are seen as return enhancing, which typically they will rise even more when the market goes up, and conversely they'll fall even more when the market goes down. And that's not where we operate. We, in the risk diversifying category, we see ourselves as risk diversifiers. So typically when the market runs hard, we would lag, but when the market falls, we would hopefully fall a lot more. And the next few slides I've shown by example, using one of our funds, what has happened. Obviously, there's a common denominator, which is leverage. And when people hear the word leverage, they become very nervous. And hedge funds are perceived to be very risky. There are still some people that think if I invest in a hedge fund, I'm going to lose all my money. Or if I don't get 10% per month, then this is not working. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And there's also some people think hedge funds managers are cowboys. I think those people just watched Billions too much, the series, because, as you know, most people here presented, managers, started off as hedge fund, and the hedge fund managers themselves are more than competent, very responsible, and most of the time their own money are invested in the fund. The majority of their own wealth are invested in their own funds, and they give everyone else the opportunity to go along for the wealth creation journey. Just a few more bullet points. I promise there are a few pictures after this. The buyer, it's hedge funds, the role they can play in a portfolio. It's a bi-directional investment strategy, meaning that we can obviously participate on the upside, but when markets fall, we can also make money, or at least protect when we don't make money. And the reason why is because we have additional tools to traditional fund managers. And these include shorting shares or using option structures or futures or pair trades or whatever. Those are the additional tools that we use to manage the risk. And broadly, it's a diversification as an asset class. So if you include a hedge fund, you diversify the person's portfolio because there's usually a much lower correlation to markets than traditional unit trusts. And I'm definitely not dissing traditional unit trusts. There's a place for all of this in a portfolio. This is not a replacement. This is supposed to be a complement to all those traditional unit trusts. But I want to really focus, and the rest of the presentation will focus on the next 3 bullet points. The ability to limit deep drawdowns, the potential for superior risk-adjusted returns. That is really where the rubber hits the road, the risk-adjusted returns. And by doing that, you aim to reduce the client's sequence risk. So what I'm trying to show here is what the fund, and I'm using our fund as an example of what happened in the past 9 years when the market rose, bull months, and when the market fell, the bear months. I didn't include any kangaroo months. It's the first time I heard that term today. But in the months when the index was positive, 61 months out of the last 108 months, the fund managed to capture 1.6%. So it looks like a little compared to what the FTSE Developed World Index did. But more importantly, I want you to focus on the bar chart next to it, the bear months. So 47 months out of the last 108 months were negative. And the fund's returns, or the average return for the fund was 0.17%. That is a lot less than minus 3%. And that is what the market gave you when it was negative. Then I checked what did it do against our local market. Again, the 62 months when it was up, the fund's average return was up 1.2%. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you look at the down months, and there were 46 out of the last 108 months were negative. And on average, those months were negative by 3%. The fund did not only protect, it actually delivered a positive return on average in those same months. And I think that is alone enough reason to consider including hedge funds. It's not just protecting, it can actually add a return. So the message of this slide is capturing the ups, but also cushioning the downs. Then I dug a little deeper, and I wanted to look at all the bad times, because that is inevitable. The bearish months of the all share and the bearish months of the developed world index. And basically half of the time, 44% of the time when the developed market index was down, the fund delivered a positive return, a monthly return. And on the all share, even better. More than half of the time, the fund was positive. So what does it mean for your client? If you had a client that was invested in the fund and the market was down, half of the time he would have received a positive return. That is impossible to do with a long-only equity fund that is following a benchmark. It is impossible that there would have been a positive month. So all of you would have seen the slide, the 10 worst months or the 10 best months. If you exclude the best 10 months over a long period, we've seen the graph, you would have done a lot worse than just the index. But obviously, if you take out the worst 10 months, you would do a lot better. That's just common sense. So I was interested to see, and I did a lot of this analysis for the first time for this presentation, and I'm invested in this own fund. So I was positively surprised that I actually could show this. And as you can see, there were some deep drawdowns. This is the worst 10 months in the last 9 years for the Developed World Index. And it ranges from -8.5 to -4.4. And the fund managed to not just deliver a lot less downside, so a lot more downside protection, but it was up 4 of those months. So similarly, on the all-share, compared to the all-share index, these are drawdowns of 12% per month, the worst month, to 4%, 12 to 4%. The fund delivered a lot less or more downside risk, didn't fall as much, and 3 times it was actually positive. The last slide I wanted to focus on the drawdowns is when I zoom out and I look longer term. The worst month the fund has ever had, the lowest rolling 12 months the fund has ever had, and the largest cumulative drawdown the fund has had. So again, if you just look at the largest cumulative drawdown on the far right, it fell 8.2%. That's the deepest drawdown the fund has experienced in the last 9 years. And this is obviously through a lot of volatility. It's compared to 19 and 22% for the index, the ALSI and the FTSE Developed World Index. And I really think if it hasn't resonated yet, the message here obviously is if you fall 10%, you need 11% to come back. If you fall 30%, you need 50%. If you fall 50%, you need 100%. There was a slide earlier this morning that I saw, and again, I'm not dissing anyone, but when you experience a drawdown of 50%, the chances of investors, and you would know, staying invested is really hard. It's just the behavioral, economic finance of it. We're all human. We all panic. And if you can limit those drawdowns, not only is it got a quicker recovery period, but you prevent your clients and yourselves from making mistakes, behavioral mistakes that shoot yourself in the foot. So it's one thing to protect on the downside, but what if ultimately people want to make money? They want to capture the upside. Now have we done on the upside? The question is, did we, by protecting on the downside, miss out on the upside? And the answer is no. The short answer is no. This is how the fund has performed over the last 9 years. As you can see, it's double-digit returns over all periods. It's 15% over the last 3 years annualized. And this is compared to this is a worldwide multi-asset flexible category. It's funds operating very similarly in terms of returns, but the drawdowns obviously would be much deeper because they cannot protect on the downside. And that is the holy grail. That is what we try and do. We want to capture as much of the upside while protecting on the downside. And I think we've succeeded in that. This is just a different way of showing it, but what I want to show here is all the examples that I've used previously as the Worldwide Flexible Fund, but that is a QIF, that's a monthly priced fund. But the 2 funds that are on all the platforms is the Protea Global Fund and the Protea South Africa Fund. And if you invest in a 50-50, that is the dotted black line. So you can see it gives you a very similar return profile than the Worldwide Flexible Fund in all the examples that I've used. That is just to prove the point. But obviously, people can choose. We also give investors the opportunity to invest according to their geographical preference. If you only want global exposure, the fund the global fund only invests in developed market equities. So you've got that choice as well. This is just an example of how we manage to protect on the downside, and that is by using the short positioning. This is just the top 5 global and South African shorts that we've had. In the middle, you see the price drop while we were short and the contribution to the fund's return. So there are a few things that I want to mention on this slide. Obviously, we look for frauds, fads, and failures. And Wirecard at the top there was fraudulent. And while we were short, the price dropped 98%. But we only contributed 1.3% to the fund's return. Why? Because we do not take concentration risk, especially on the short side. We want to keep the positions very small. We'd rather hit the 1s and 2s than the 6s out of the park. Similarly, I didn't put it on here, didn't make the cut on the South African side, but we made a lot of money on Steinhoff, but with an option. Some of you may have seen the documentary Steinice. We did feature in that. We made the news. So it's obviously, it's not easy to identify these opportunities, so they are few and far between, the fraudulent. But when companies are overvalued, it gives us the opportunity to short a share. We might think that the company is doing a good job, but it is run way too far. And that is just a way to protect on the downside. So just a quick brief example of a recent special situation. This is, other than longs and shorts, obviously hedge fund exploit these opportunities. And we've identified Natco Pharma on the Adcock Ingram shareholder register in the middle of 2023. The share price is in black and the portfolio weight is in pink. And the announcement came out a few months ago that there's going to be a minority takeout at 75 Rand. And our variable perception was twofold, that Adcock would pay a final dividend in September, in addition to the 75 Rand, and that scheme would be finalized quicker than implied. So that's going to happen in November. It's less than 2 months ago. We upped the position at 71.50 Rand. That's only 3 Rand 50 from here, and there's a dividend. But if you look at that over a period of 3 months, it's an annualized return on that opportunity of nearly 30%. So again, it's these opportunities are at our disposal that not everyone, not every fund can exploit. And then very, very quickly, what are our views on the market going forward? And that's a very, very easy answer. We've got absolutely no idea. We don't know what interest rates are going to do. We don't know where the rand's going to be. But you know what? No one else does. And our focus remains on identifying opportunities where there's a valuation gap between price and value. And if it's undervalued, we can buy it. If it's overvalued, we can short it. And that is how we try and manage the fund. And at the end of the day, we don't have to predict what's going to happen. We can build a portfolio that's resilient in all kinds of markets. And I'm going to leave you with this quote of one of the best investors who ever lived. You can't predict, but you can prepare. And I hope that some of what I said resonated. I'm also well aware that after you leave this room, you forgot what everyone said. So if there's one thing that I want you to remember, it is that Protea exists, now that you know, and that it can add, hedge funds in general, can add a valuable tool to your clients' portfolios. Thank you very much.
Sure. Hendrik, that was fantastic. Thank you very much.